Hi, I'm Nicole.
And I'm Robin, and today on Books That Burn, we are interviewing an author. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Seanan McGuire. I am being interviewed.
Wonderful.
Can you talk a little bit about the way that trauma works in your writing?
I mean, I am a traumatized person. I don't think that's any kind of a surprise to anyone who has encountered my work or me. It might be a surprise if you don't know that, or if you haven't encountered those things. But I am a traumatized person, and I feel that anything you do that shows your scars is going to inform what you're working on. There are occasionally times when I will write something and get told, oh my God, that's super disturbing. But as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly normal. I didn't think I was writing or doing or saying anything that might be upsetting to someone else because that's just literally how the world works. My first series is the October Day books. And in those, Toby has a really bad relationship with her mother. And I periodically, like as a whole, I will not argue with other people's experiences of a work, whether it's my work or someone else's. That is not your place. You don't get to tell other people how to read or interpret something. But I have received email and such from readers who read the Toby books and were like, yeah, no, we're fine with a secret land of fairy coexisting with modern San Francisco. We have no issues with that. But it is so unrealistic that Toby's relationship with her parents would be this bad. Okay, the part of me that's a professional says thank you for your opinion. The part of me that is a traumatized child and always will be says fuck off and die. And I apologize. I know this is the clean language part of the show, and that was not intentional. But still, it's like everything you do is very much informed by your trauma. It doesn't get to go away just because you don't think it's presentable right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's funny because that's something that we have actually grappled with as readers. It's interesting to see, like, you read something and then we hear somebody else talk about it, or we have somebody on as a guest and they're like, what? Why would this be a thing? And then we're like, that was me. This is real. It's a weird dichotomy when people don't have experiences and then they almost find out about it third hand and don't know what to do, I guess.
So, understanding that the answer you just gave might change the angle of this question a little bit, has a traumatic event in your books ever changed your perception of a character?
Of a character?
Yes.
Yeah, like sometimes authors will tell us that they I don't know, so when we say traumatic event, we're referring to like a traumatic event, like in your book, something happened to them. Have you ever had one where you wrote a traumatic event in for a character and then it changed the way you thought about them?
Like
Is that ever the directionality?
Like you thought you knew who they were and then you started writing their story, or you wrote something and you went, oh, just kidding. They're a little bit different than I was expecting.
Yeah, that has happened occasionally. I have a trilogy under my Mira Grant name, which is the Parasitology trilogy. And that is literally a set of books about intelligent tapeworms taking people over and driving them like meat cars, because I write high. And there is...
As someone who loves Animorphs, that sounds very good.
Yeah, the Parasite trilogy, I love them. I think that they are not my absolute best work. I'm not going to try to make that claim, but they are very solid and they make me happy. And at the end of the day, once I've gotten past the initial, can this book sell well? Is this book going to be a success phase? That's what matters. Make me happy that it's a part of my canon now, because I'm stuck with it. The Parasite books, they're all about intelligent tapeworms trying to get by in a world that is not real big on intelligent tapeworms taking people over and driving them like meat cars.
I thought that sentence was going to end with the world isn't very big because tapeworms are small. And
well, again, they're taking people over and driving.
Yeah.
Once you have a car, the world is much more reasonably sized.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So there is a character in that series who has what's called a tomato in the mirror moment fairly early in. And tomato in the mirror is a trope wherein you realize suddenly, oh my gosh, the monster is me. And I believe it was coined in reference to the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes cartoon, where one of literally a person who had been mutated from a tomato. And so I have that moment early in, and I thought that this character, because this was the first trilogy I wrote as Mira Grant after the Newsflesh trilogy, I really thought that this character would, just woman up and be fine. She'd step forward to the challenge. And she said, nope, I don't remember that. What the hell do you mean? It just happened. It's on the page. Nope. I am opting out of this entire plot line. I'm out. Thank you. Have a nice day. Find another protagonist. And so book me fighting to get my protagonist back on board with being my protagonist.
Oh, man.
So that was a fun time.
That, honestly, the concept of your character turning around and saying, excuse me? Why?
She was not down for what I did.
Yeah. All right. So, in a slightly skewing, hopefully a little bit away from trauma as a topic, hopefully, in a related to like what part of you kind of ends up in your work kind of a question, what parts of your personal identities do you notice making appearance in your writing? Maybe even a little bit more than you originally planned for.
I mean, most commonly there is the fact that, and I think that this is in part a reflection on society rather than a reflection on me. Because I write all of my characters as people, I have a tendency to get accused of queer baiting a lot because people can be like, oh my gosh, these two female characters are both written as if they were fully realized people and mattered to the plot. They must be planning to hook up.
Oh no.
I have never intentionally teased a same-sex relationship that I did not actually go through on.
Gotcha.
But I am a queer lady. I like the ladies. I am also a demisexual lady. I am not super interested in doing anything with the ladies. I just like to look. And so I don't write sex. And if you are here for really graphic sex, if that's what makes you happy, I am never going to make you happy. Just pretty much. And it's not because I'm being prudish or I don't think there's a place for sex. I don't care. I am completely interested. Asking me to write sex is like asking me to write the detailed minutia of an accountant's day. It's kind, it's not fun, and I'm not going to do a good job. So my queerness definitely comes through, even when I don't mean for it to. I am also neurodivergent. I don't think I have written a neurotypical character in my life. I don't think I can. There are limitations to every author, and this is one of mine. And when I try to write a non-neurodivergent character, it comes off as, hey, fellow kids, how you doing? It doesn't really...
Oh, goodness. That makes sense. It's... On the flip side, as someone who is neurodivergent, trying to pretend that I'm not also feels like, hi, fellow kids, what's up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm totally not thinking of something completely different than you with the different outcome, with the same prompt. Like, that makes.
And
I
don't mind. I don't mind that all my characters read as somewhere on the spectrum. What I do mind is when people try to get me, like they will confront me on social media or whatever to get me to. You have to actually say that canonically, Sarah Zellabley is autistic, and I'm like, well, Sarah is not human. Her brain literally doesn't work like a human's does. I don't think it's actually fair to claim that I wrote Sarah to be autistic rep because there's not enough rep that we can just start cramming non-humans in there.
Well, and especially when a lot of the rep is non-human, and that's like a kind of an issue already. Yeah.
Oh, I am kind of very aware.
Yeah,
that's like that's basically they're asking you just you're like, no, category error. This is not no.
Yeah, no. I'm not going to say that the species of always chaotic, evil, soul-sucking monsters is autistic people. that's not a place I really feel like going this week. Could
Much
you stop?
appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, that's
Your reaction,
that's
not their question.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Robin, you want the next one, or you want me to grab the next one?
Yeah. So talking a little bit about how you build the characters that then have bad things happen to them. What is your approach to incorporating visible queerness in your work?
Like intentionally, not accidentally this time.
Oh yeah. Well, the visible, I think, is kind of the key word there. You know, everything
exactly.
I write and read as queer, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if they never actually get to be queer. Now, that said, as an author who doesn't write sex and does not find it an interesting place to go, it is very frustrating to me how often I get told that queer content doesn't count if it's not graphically sexual. Like, I'm a lesbian while not having sex, y'all. If I were writing detailed sex for all of the straight couples and only my queer couples didn't get to do anything, that would be a valid complaint. But saying that there's no queer content because the queer couples keep their clothes on, when I think the most graphic sex scene I've ever written was less than a paragraph long, is a little bit disingenuous and kind of holding us to an unreachable standard. But to actually add, the visible queerness, generally, I try to make sure that it is with a character where they have something else going on. I am not particularly interested in writing, Saturday afternoon specials. I really want characters to exist for reasons outside their sexuality. I said I'm still a lesbian when I'm not actively having sex with someone. Well, I'm also still a lesbian while I'm doing my taxes.
Yeah.
Still a lesbian right now while I'm doing this podcast with two people I have never met and with whom I will probably never make out. I don't think that should be the only defining.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I also do kind of run into issues sometimes where it's like, well, if the language isn't there, the character is not necessarily going to state that they claim that identity.
Right,
because it's hard to
in
pick
real
a label
life,
when you don't know about it.
Well, and in, like, not everybody goes around to other people like, hello, this is who I like. That's even for safety, like that's not just a thing that people just do. So it would be it's very weird when it's in a book like that.
Yeah.
How does setting influence queerness in your stories?
I mean, setting influences queerness in part through language. I am very fortunate. I say as if I had nothing to do with it, but I am very fortunate that most of my primary series are set in places where I can decide the social rules. So, Toby's universe, they have a big hang up on inheritance. There's an entire set of commandments from one of the firstborn, which are the people that kind of run fairy, but we all wish they didn't, telling her descendants to go forth and multiply. Basically, she wants to outbreed everybody else, and so they tend to focus on heterosexual marriages until they have an heir. If you are not actively in line to inherit a throne or are already in possession of an heir, which is a relatively rare and very exciting state to be in, they have no interest. They don't care. There is literally just, okay, whatever. You do what you're doing. We don't care.
I hope this is not a spoiler. In that universe, does adoption count? Or does it have to be bloodline?
So you can do adoption, but it's very, very rare because, again, extraordinarily unpleasant person, like the particular person I'm talking about and not naming is, I think, no one's favorite character. And that takes some doing.
Okay.
Like, she is the worst.
I definitely do not like her as a person. She's a fascinating character.
Yeah, she is not a good person. She is the worst. I worked very hard to make sure she would be the worst because it's hard worse than some of the other characters. And she manages it. I'm proud of her. But her specific commandment was, take these thrones in my name, hold the world for me. Adoption is okay if you can find someone to adopt. But Fae live forever if not killed, and as a consequence have phenomenally low birth rate.
Oh, okay. So even finding someone who does not have a family already is
exactly.
Gotcha.
And
like,
then
you can literally be married for centuries,
right.
And I would guess that if you that she would probably want whoever you adopted to be of her bloodline, or she might not think of that as counting towards.
Absolutely.
If you are trying thrones for her.
Yeah, if you're trying to do as you were told, which most of them are because they are all dutiful descendants, which is not the smartest thing to be, but it's kind of what she set them up for. Parental damage is a big theme in my work. But, they're trying very hard to be dutiful and to do what they were told to do. And so they are not going to go, well, I managed to get a throne for you, Mom. And then I someone from a different bloodline.
Like, oops, sorry.
Sorry. It was almost good. So adoption is fine. And we do have one Fae queen that we've confirmed who does adopt because she was asexual. I think she's dead now. I'm not actually certain because this is in the 1500s. But we have at least one documented case of adoption. You just have to have a big enough throne that someone will give you their kid.
Gotcha. So we're gonna move a little bit away from queer representation and ask about representation for characters of color. What is your approach to including these characters? Do you have a formalized approach?
I don't have a formalized approach. I tend to try to represent I have a rule basically that if you are someone I know well enough that I would give you a sandwich and you tell me you've never gotten to see yourself in fiction, I will include you in the next book I write, come hell or water. And that has worked out reasonably well a couple of times now. But it also means that I get a built-in, not sensitivity reader, but cultural consultant.
Oh, cool.
If I am writing a character specifically for you and you know that, then I'm not being an asshole when I go, hey, how does this work?
Right.
That's I do great approach.
I do at least currently try to make sure I'm not writing anything where I don't have, at minimum, a cultural consultant, if not a sensitivity reader. Sadly, sometimes I'm on projects where, because of NDAs and the like, I literally can't hire a sensitivity reader unless my publisher allows me to. And so I have to stick with those cultural consultants. I do try to be very aware of where my lane is. And that can be difficult. You'll have today, every author with a platform should be writing a main character of color. And tomorrow, white authors should never be writing characters of color. And I try not to let that stop me, even though I have a near pathological fear of being yelled at.
Which is interesting for someone with Twitter as a major platform.
Oh, yeah. I have blocked like 30 people today alone.
Oh, I fully believe it. I've seen some of the comments that you've gotten on things where, that's it. It's interesting.
Yeah, but Twitter yelling is simultaneously not real yelling and is kind of subdivided into, do I deserve it or are you just being a dick?
Gotcha. That makes sense.
All the people I'm blocking today, I'm blocking because yesterday, after I watched someone who had been vaccinated get cornered by a family member going, well, now you have to hug me because you hug me again.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know. It's really awful. I wrote a thread saying, hey, as we get back to being allowed and able to safely hug each other, please keep in mind that you are under no obligation to let anyone touch you. And it's a very measured thread. You can probably still find it because it was just yesterday. Twitter is a fire hose, but it's not that fast. It's a measured thread, and it's not saying hugs are bad. It's not saying if you're vaccinated, keep not doing anything. It's you still have bodily autonomy even after a global pandemic. And these people are mad about that because I, as a woman, said that you are under no obligation to touch people. And they correctly read that as this is a thing that will mostly happen to women and people who are presumed women. And nothing makes dudes mad like saying a woman's body is not public property.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we'll link that thread in the show notes because by the time this comes out, that thread will have been months ago and unfindable. So,
but,
we'll help you out there.
In that specific case, I know for a fact that I said nothing wrong.
Right.
So you yell at me and I'll just block you. But on the other hand, if you want to call out the fact that a lot of my earliest work was published in 2009, 2010, the conversation around ableist language was in a very different place.
Yeah.
So if you're reading my earliest work, you will find a lot of casual ableist slurs. I genuinely did not know. No one had ever told me. My publisher didn't call it out because it wasn't something people were paying attention to yet. That does not make it okay, but ignorance is not something people should be punished for as long as they're making an effort to learn.
Yeah.
And about once every couple of years at this point, somebody who has been told that I am a super inclusive, super aware author, which is like, that's cool, but that is not actually a reputation I'm trying to foster for exactly this reason, will earliest books and get pissed off at me because in a book with a pub date of 2009, I use a word that we have all retired from our vocabularies because we don't want to be bad people.
Right.
And then they'll hop on Twitter and start screaming at me because I was told you were safe and look at this thing you did that is not safe. And I understand that they're speaking from a place of pain, that they wouldn't be yelling at me if they were not already bruised and I hadn't hit their bruise. But I'm not the one that told them it was safe there. So maybe yell at the person that set you up to hurt yourself. And those yelling ats make me sick to my stomach. And when they involve something recent, when it is, no, you really did mess up recently.
Yeah.
I do my absolute best to avoid that, not even out of sensitivity or kindness, but just because I don't want to vomit on my cat.
Fair enough. I'm sure your cat also appreciates that. Does not
My cat
like
kind of deserves it. So.
Actually, so speaking of characters with disabilities, do you tend to write disabilities into your narratives with a particular set of reference, either that exists in the real world or if you make up rules that work for a world? Or do you tend to write cultures that kind of hide disabilities or they just don't make it in there?
The majority of my work has been either urban fantasy or near future science fiction. So you are our world, basically.
Okay.
And a lot of the same degree of hiding or not hiding disability. I tend to write disabilities that, again, I have a cultural consultant for, although more frequently it is myself because I am a person. I admit there are neurodivergences that I would not be comfortable writing, either because they deserve to be own voices stories or because they have been so villainized that I don't know how much I am acting off of stereotype and misassumption and how much I'm acting off of real information. There is also a nasty tendency, and this is one of those things that I find very upsetting, even when I know it's not personal. There's a nasty tendency on all our parts, because we're all bruised, to go looking for intentional damage. So in that Parasite series that I mentioned before, there is a woman named Shanti Kale, who was actually named after my boss at the time, and I hope she took that as a flattering thing. But there's Shanti Kale, who is a wheelchair user. She was not a wheelchair user when she was with her ex-husband. We have a point fairly late in, I think, book 3, where the ex-husband and Shanti are in the same place for the first time in the series. And he says something really shitty to her. And her response is, oh, yes, because wheelchair users are so helpless. And then wheels herself over his foot. And someone that I know, we weren't good friends, but like this person knew me, and I thought that they would have a vague sense of where I was coming from, hopped on Twitter and got furiously angry at me because you should do better. And as a wheelchair user, that is like an actual encounter I have lived through multiple times. I wrote it, lived it. And so because we are not in a place right now where we can actually think the best of people, even when they have demonstrated no intentional harm, I do back away from disabilities where I can't say no, own voices. Please stop saying I eat babies because your experience with an ECV at Disney World was not exactly like mine.
Yeah.
So when building your, we've talked a little about a couple different kinds of parts of characters' identities, but when building those, what aspects do you intentionally include?
Very, very few, unless it's a case of somebody told me I never get to see myself in stories. I am what George R. R. Martin calls a gardener.
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
write books as if I were plotting a trip to Disneyland. You know that the first thing you do is going to be hopping on the Haunted Mansion, and you know that your dinner reservation is for the Blue Bayou at 7. Everything in the middle is up to you. And so I figure out what the book is, I figure out where it starts, and I figure out where it stops. And then I just let them go. And I tell the characters, okay, do what you're going to do, and I will make decisions when I have to. And then they do what they're going to do, and I make the decisions when I have to. And I find that as a character generation process gives me people rather than toys.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. So we're gonna ask probably one last question in our spoiler-free section, and then we'll go on to the spoiler zone, so to speak.
Rock and roll.
Do you consider your character's physical description when writing how other characters treat them?
I mean, I think you kind of have to, because people are shallow. People are always going to be shallow. I try to make sure that I am not including unpleasant hot buttons more than absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But I have Verity, who's a professional ballroom dancer, and she is extraordinarily careful with her appearance because she knows that people are judging her on it all the time. And then in that same series, we have her baby sister, Antimony, who does not care. If you want to judge her, go right ahead. She'll judge you at the same time. But as long as I'm writing in worlds that are this closely connected to ours, I don't think I can get away from that, even if I want to, which I would kind of love to, because I don't really care all that much. They're not people that I actually get to meet. They're not people I need to pick out of a police lineup. I would like them to feel real to you, but knowing what feels real and what doesn't is so very difficult.
Yeah.
Thing that goes on social media periodically where people are fun of men writing women. And they're like, no one stands in front of a mirror and thinks about her breasts that way. Well, yeah, some of us do.
Some do, but not every character, and shouldn't be everyone.
No, not every character, but it's like, I was a very fat child, and I have lost a lot of weight, and sometimes I will stand in front of the mirror and just like look at my boobs, trying to figure out what they're doing today, because I don't know. Aruba, and they haven't taken me. Because I still have large breasts, I'm just very aware of what they're doing most of the time.
Yeah.
If I'm, exercising or I'm not wearing the best bra or something, I know exactly what's going on there. And if we are in a first person book, and so you're getting my internal monologue, then yes, to me, the natural thing to do is to talk about my boobs because it's an internal monologue. And then if you do that, you get told, well, no, real people don't do that. It's like, but am I not real?
Yeah. Like, I also am a real person, thank you.
Well, for someone who doesn't exist, you've written a lot of books, so...
Yes. Clearly, I don't need to sleep, because that is something only material people do, and I'm not real.
Weirdly enough, one of the books that we're going to ask you about in our second half deals with that exact, hey, I am a real person concept. So...
I feel like it's not weirdly when Seanan has those thoughts and wrote that book.
That is the joke I was making. Okay. Yeah.
I was scarred by The Last Unicorn at a very young age.
Oh, no.
What does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a person? What will distinguish a person from a human is a thing that I beat on a lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That happens. So, I feel like this is a good place to turn to our outro stuff. So,
yay!
Yes. What is your favorite non-traumatic thing in any of your books?
There is a sequence in the 5th October Day book, which is One Salt Sea, wherein Toby rides a mermaid in a wheelchair down a large hill in San Francisco. And that remains one of the best things I will ever do. My second favorite, and possibly my favorite, depending on the time of day, is either the death in feed that I've referred to obliquely but will not directly call out, because I have never hurt anyone the way I hurt my entire readership with the book, including myself. As badly as you think it hurt you, I had to do that to my imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Not okay. And kind of like Dodger's suicide attempt, that was one of the things I couldn't take back. I tried and tried and it couldn't be done. So, that is a close second. Or Nancy and Sumi actually having the asexuality 101 talk in Every Heart a Doorway. Because not everything needs to be 101 in this world. It's not how things ought to work. Everyone should get different levels of representation and different levels of needing to explain shit. But I've had so many readers contact me over that scene. Go, thank you for helping me find the language I needed, or thank you for putting the language in a published book that I could show my father, my grandfather, whatever, to explain that, see, it's normal enough that it's in books.
Do you have a favorite book written by somebody else? And if so, what makes it your favorite?
My favorite book written by somebody else is probably It by Stephen King, which I read for the first time when I was 9 years old and thus younger than the members of the Losers Club, and have reread at least once a year ever since, and am now older than the members of the Losers. And what makes it my favorite is really nothing the book itself did or does. It's the fact that because I have been rereading it on such a precise schedule for my entire adult life, I have been able to watch the ways that my own responses to things changed as I changed as a person. And occasionally use that to go, I don't like how I respond to this part now. Is it because I am becoming a person I don't like? And sometimes the answer there is yes. And it's time to back up and do some more therapy.
Yeah.
Do you have any queer authors and or authors of color whose work you'd like to shout out?
I mean, I think the majority of the authors that I am actively reading that are younger, in the sense of publishing, if not necessarily age, are queer. That is so common among the cadre that I'm following these days. Kind of, and of course, all names leave your head as soon as he asks you that question. But Meg Elison is a big favorite, and she is a queer author. She is a feminist author. She is an unabashedly fat author who actually writes about fat people as if they were sexual creatures and worthy of desire and worthy of being included in a full universe and not just sidelined to the funny comic relief or whatever it is that they're allowed to be this week. And that is so novel and so refreshing to see that it's just glorious. Literally about 5 minutes before the start of this podcast, I finished reading a book called Agnes at the End of the Week by an author named Kelly McWilliams. And Kelly is, she is mixed race. So she is an author of color. She was able to write the book in part because of a We Need Diverse Books mentorship. I don't know for sure, but I strongly suspect on her web presence that she is in fact queer, because people who are not queer tend to refer to their spouse at some point by a gendered term, whether they mean to or not, and her spouse is only referred to as her partner. That's not, but I would say there's a good chance that she fits both sides of your question, and I don't think speculation is the same as outing, thankfully, because my particular era of queer says that outing someone is the literal worst thing you can do ever under any circumstances. I very much enjoy Amal El Montour, who is a Oh God, I have forgotten completely. She is Canadian, but she is also an author of color from another country whose name I've just forgotten because I am a terrible person to get it wrong.
Yeah, what I've read by her is this is how you lose the this is how you lose the time warp that she co-wrote with Max Gladstone.
Yep.
It's so good.
Oh yeah, she and I were both up for the Hugo that year. I want to say In an Absent Dream, and as soon as I saw the ballot, I'm like, nope, it's fine, I've lost.
Like, oh, there it goes.
I don't even have to get worried about what I'm going to say. Like, there is no need for it because I'm not winning this award. Hope is the. So that was kind of great.
Yeah.
But Amal is fantastic. Sarah Kuhn, who does urban fantasy and a lot of YA romance. She's done some work for DC Comics. And she is a queer woman of color, and I adore her. We are publishing mates at Daw Books, and she makes me very happy. She's fun to go to Taco Bell with.
All right. Thank you for those. And then where can our audience find you?
I mean, as you've mentioned, I basically live on kind of a tragedy how much time I spend on Twitter. And as you pointed out, it is also fairly perplexing. Pathologically averse to being yelled at as I am, spends this much time on Twitter. But there I am, and there I tend to stay. You can also find me at www. Well, there's no www. Old. Oh my God. You can find me at SeananMcGuire.com. I am on Instagram, though my Instagram is 90% pictures of My Little Ponies, which is not everybody's cup of tea. It's definitely not my publicist's cup of tea, which is I would do something else, anything else. Please, God, why are you photographing every single Generation 1 My Little Pony in chronological order? No one cares.
But the people who care know exactly where to go for it.
Right.
Yep, the people who care so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, this is the only engagement I've been dreaming of since. So how about you let me have this one space? Or you can find me on Patreon as Seanan McGuire, or Tumblr as Seanan McGuire, and I am relatively active in both of those places.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us. This was really, really great, and we didn't even get interrupted by cats.
Well,
well, at the very end, right now in this outro, we got interrupted by cats. But until then, it was extremely cat-free, which is a real trick with 3 cat households.
Yes.
Yep.
So, thank you so much. And you can find us at booksthatburn.card.co. That's card with 2 R's. And you can catch our regularly scheduled episodes every other Monday. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
bye.